welcome to another episode of Cherish TV. We are so glad you tuned in today. We're 5 friends who may not always agree, but what we can agree on is that we want to make the world a better place. We have different stories, different journeys, and we're here today to bring you a different view. I'd love it if you'd welcome my co-hosts this morning, the beautiful Ashley, Stacey, Brianna, and Michaela Ray. We are going to have a fun day, girls. You ready?
Yes.
Okay, so this was our most asked question on Facebook.
Like to date?
To date.
Okay.
The most asked question. And I want to remind our viewers, ask us questions on Facebook. Let us know what you want to hear because we want to scratch the right itches.
Right.
Anyway, talking about scratching itches, how much sex
where we're going. Okay.
should I be having? Oh my gosh. Okay.
How much sex well, this is all in the context of marriage, I'm assuming.
Well,
Let's clarify that statement.
So if you're married, you can have as much sex as your heart's desires. So it's great. But this is my personal philosophy, and I don't want to make any girls upset or feel bad, but I really think you should have as much sex as what keeps your husband happy. And I have recently come to this.
The perfect woman.
I used to be the one in our relationship, as most of my friends know, that wanted sex more than my husband. But the older I get and
somebody
the more
block
kids
Jurgen's
I have,
ears right now. Somewhere.
I know, Jurgen would always be like, touch my wife, touch my wife.
Pray for my wife.
Pray for my wife. But now it's quite different. So
that's because he'd never leave me alone. I'm like, I don't have a chance to want it because I don't stop getting the vibe from you. It's like it's always coming at me.
I know, there needs
I need to be able to miss it so I can want it again.
It's true.
Oh my gosh,
it's true.
I love
but honestly, like, because a man is created to desire that, I feel like as our wife, it's our responsibility to fulfill that. And not in an unhealthy way. Like, if your husband is wanting to have sex like 5 times a day, ew, that's unhealthy.
Ew, get a job.
Ew. Yeah. Get a job.
Get a job.
Or even every day, like, that is a little much. But if it's a reasonable amount, like 3 or 4 times a week, I think that's reasonable. And if it keeps your husband happy and he's a good husband and he takes care of you,
yes,
then take
he's
care
buying
of
your
him.
Valentinos.
Like my husband buys me nice things, takes really good care
It's
of
time
me.
to put out when you get a pair of Valentinos.
Wow. So if they deserve
Wives
it,
of America.
yes,
Good shoes equal a good night.
equal good sex.
There you
so
go.
if they deserve it, do it.
Come
Is
on.
my philosophy.
But what if they don't deserve it? What do we do? Do we withhold affection because our husbands haven't been perfect?
I think it's so interesting because here's the thing: as a woman, we're so emotional, and at least for me, like if I'm upset that Kenny has bugged me or he's annoyed me somehow, I'm like, bye, good night. I'm wearing sweats and a t-shirt to bed. Good luck. You know, and I get in that way. But for me, it's, you know, I can't withhold. And so if I haven't resolved the conversation, which obviously that's the first thing that we try and do is, let's have a conversation, babe. You're not sexy to me right now because you annoyed me. I just want to let you know. And we have that conversation. But if not, then I've actually tried to be the one that will be the first to initiate, like, okay, even though I'm so not in the mood, I'm extremely exhausted, and I don't really care, I could go to bed and be happy.
Yeah.
I just make it happen because I know that afterwards, excuse me, I do feel more connected.
Yeah.
And there's just that exchange that happens where then he's happy, I'm happy, and now we can have that conversation. But I mean, I feel like I've spoken to it before. It's about seasons as well. Like, I mean, baby life, finance. Like, there's been times when we were so strapped financially, and I'm like, nope, I'm not thinking about anything but paying our bills. And so for us, we always try and see what are the roots that are causing us to be disengaged intimately. Like, I don't want to have sex. Where is it coming from?
Right.
And then from there,
have that conversation.
Yeah, because then the rest flows.
Yes.
And I might not be like Michaela who wants to all the time or whatever.
Right.
But making it happen in my heart and in my mind first actually gets me there physically, and then I think that's the answer, at least that works.
Stress is a
Got
big
it.
negative factor.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. It shuts things down, and I think that's where communication is really good because, you know, especially in stressful times, like disengaging from each other in that area just makes things worse.
Right.
It makes it a whole lot worse.
You said it really great at sometimes when the wife is so stressed, the husband is so stressed, but the husband's resolve is sex and the wife's resolve is no sex. Like, they're completely opposite, so you have to close that gap. And like, someone has to make the move and compromise a bit. Like every time that I have sex with my husband, I wasn't exactly wanting it, but sometimes you just do. Like sometimes you just have to close the gap, get reconnected, like Ashley said.
Yes.
And since I'm pregnant right now too, it changes everything.
Oh, so
I'm like,
much.
I feel like I want to throw up like every night. I just don't feel like having sex. Like, what the heck? I'm pregnant. I feel fat. All of those things that women go through. But like, I just have to sometimes just be like, get over yourself, Kayla.
Yeah, right. Looking after each other, preferring one another over yourself, the Bible says.
Yeah.
And I think it is important because, you know, there are seasons where you're not going to feel as motivated as others, but that doesn't mean that your partner's needs and desires have shifted. So being aware of the other person, for sure. But don't you think that Hollywood and sitcoms
I was
and,
just gonna say,
you know, there definitely is a perception out there that every married person out there is having great sex, and you're comparing yourself to people through different seasons.
Yeah.
And we can feel that pressure.
I feel like I can speak to that too, because when I was a fiance and I was getting engaged, I had a couple of girlfriends who just were always like, oh my gosh, we have sex so much, and I had this crazy
Why did they
expectation.
say that? Why did
because they
people-
were
I've
mean
never-
friends. Like,
would
we're
never
not
say
really
that.
friends in real life anymore. We see each
Okay.
other every now and then. But it set up this weird expectation, and then I see it in the movies, like throwing against the wall and all these amazing wild things that happen.
Never
You think this
happens.
romantic, I came home with flowers, now I'm gonna just push you against the wall and kiss you. But I'm like, it doesn't happen like that. Sometimes it's just, he comes home from the gym and he's like, okay. I'm like, wow, this is not like I thought in these romantic comedies or whatever. And so clearly defining what reality is instead of just expecting the Hollywood scene of the chocolates, the flowers, the wine. Yes, that happens, but
Well, defining that from dating moving all the way forward, because, you know, fantasy, reality, what's real, even in, you know, the dating world and then leading into a marriage is, you know, things that are put on the screen are just, it's not real true to life. And so, I don't know, I think people need to learn, and that's why I guess I'm glad we talk about it here on what it really looks like.
Well, we've become so affected by all the imagery put up in front of us, and I remember seeing an interview with Matthew McConaughey's wife. I think her name is Camille, and they asked her a question. You know, what attribute would you like your husband that you see on the screen, him to bring into your real life? And she talked about how, you know, she sees him in these passionate love scenes, and she's like, that isn't my, you know, that's not our everyday. I wish he would grab me and, you know, kiss me and rub his hand through my hair. And I'm thinking, wow, this is going to be liberating for so many women, because they're thinking what we see on the movie is their hashtag real life.
Right.
But they've got 3 little kids, they've got a whole lot going on. And I think even for the best of us, even for the Hollywood movie stars who make a living off of portraying a certain image, especially in the area of romance, it's not true for them, and it's not true for most of us. And like anything in a good and healthy marriage, you have to be intentional about it, and you have to have the right conversations.
That's right.
I think Becky said on a previous episode, have the sexpectation conversation.
Right.
The sexpectation conversation. What are your expectations as it relates to sex?
great.
And if each spouse has that convo, you can come to a happy medium.
And Stacey was telling me that most, how many Americans like have sex every week?
It was an article that I was reading, but honestly, I can't cite the article. So it was one article out of many, you know, magazines and things. But it was saying that for the average American married couples, that the average amount of sex that people were having was twice a month.
Twice
Which
a
is so
month.
sad.
Wow.
That's horrible.
Okay.
So they're also saying that the numbers, like, again, Hollywood and these different portrayals, that it's all the time, every day, and it's, you know, all these things. But the actual reality, they were saying, was twice a month.
I wonder if all those people are unsatisfied.
And you're wondering why we have divorce rates
so many.
shooting through the roof, because you're so unhealthy.
My husband would be angry. He would be slamming doors. I'd be getting no Valentino shoes.
I'd be on the side of the road.
I'd be buying my shoes at Walmart. Yeah.
What I want to add too, though, is, you know, when you're stressed or when you're upset with your husband and stuff, talking about it before you have sex, like right before, isn't always the answer in my world, because I have found sometimes then the argument gets so heated that the thought of now having to have sex is so much harder. And so I have found, choose my battles wisely. Maybe I need to have this conversation the next day after sex, because sometimes if I do it beforehand, I get so heated up that I'm like, you're not touching me. And I'm getting all emotional and heightened. And so find out what things are worth talking about on the night, and what things can you just let go and deal with it later.
Because nobody wants, what is it, like mercy sex, like, all right, go on.
My husband does.
Kitty sex. No, yeah, maybe, I don't know, but I would say the majority of humans don't. Like, it's almost like, if I have to tell you, that's like, oh, you know, degrading almost, like, oh man, I want you to want me. I want you to want me. Is that a song?
That is
should
a song.
Be. There you go. It is a song.
It's a song.
All right, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to be right back, and we're going to be talking about how do I deal with a breakup? Is it possible? We'll discuss. See you soon.
Who can find a virtuous woman? For her worth is far above rubies. She seeks wool and flax, and willingly works with her hands. She is like the merchant ships. She brings her food from afar. She also rises while it is yet night, and provides food for her household. She girds herself with strength, and her lamp does not go out by night. She stretches out her hands to the distaff, and her hand holds the spindle. She extends her hand to the poor. Yes, she reaches out her hands to the needy. She is not afraid of snow for her household, for all her household is clothed with scarlet. She makes tapestry for herself. Strength and honor are her clothing. She shall rejoice in time to come.
Welcome back to Cherish TV. How many people are still breathing after that last topic of conversation? We went there,
blushing just a little bit.
How much sex should somebody have? If you didn't get to watch, rewind and watch from the beginning. Okay, question number 2, ladies, you ready?
Ready.
How do you get over a breakup? Is it ice cream? Is it watching chick flicks? Crying your
shopping.
How long? Buying shoes. What do we need to? Yeah. How does one get over a breakup? And I realize there are variations of breakups. There's the I dated him for a week, realized he wasn't the one for me, and I moved on. Shook the dust off, kept walking and yelled into the distance, next. Or was it, you know, in some cases, decades-long marriages that are ending. Like, breakups come in varying forms.
Well, I think that, you know, when you're talking about a breakup, is there a perfect breakup? I don't think there is. I think emotions are involved. I think if you're truly invested, and just like you said, I think it really depends on the emotional, like, connectivity and how deep that relationship actually went. If you truly loved someone, but then made a decision, you know what, this isn't right for me or for us, and it's actually right to not move forward, that can be a devastating breakup, and there's a lot of heartache that's involved in that. And I would say in those type of significant relationships, I personally think there needs to be a time of separation. You know, a lot of people are like, can we be friends after a breakup? Very hard, in my opinion, to go from where you were, depending on how far that relationship, you know, kind of went. It's really hard to go all the way back to a friendship when it's gone further than that. But you can be civil and quaint and not speaking evil of one another. So I think that in the actual, you know, breaking up, I think that each person, male and female, needs to guard their heart just a little bit. And I think, I know for me, there needs to be a season of healing if that relationship was a real significant relationship. And sometimes that means that we're not on each other's Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. I know.
Would you unfollow at that point just to make it easier for you?
I have unfollowed.
There you go. So the
I'll be honest,
is yes.
Like, yeah, the answer
it can be
is yes.
painful.
And again, I look back and on, you know, some of the breakups, and there's not been a ton, but there's been some. And I look back on the breakups and go, oh my gosh, I could have done it, you know, a little bit better. But for me, I did. I stopped with the social media and all of that kind of stuff because I needed a little bit of time to truly heal. And I couldn't do that with watching what his life was looking like.
Right.
I had to deal with what my life was looking like. And I think that sometimes even it's letting go of the man, sometimes it's letting go of the dream. And, you know, if that's been in your mind or your heart. So I feel like for me, with a significant relationship, there didn't need to be a season of disconnect and then a healthy way back. And the truth was, though, after I felt like I gained some healing, I actually called back to the person. That was a personal decision. I felt like it was okay to, and just said, hey, I'm good. I'm hoping that you're good. And if we cross each other's paths, I don't want it to be awkward.
Yes.
And
when you say, I want clarity on this statement you just made. You said the death of a dream or the end of a dream. You mean the dream with that person as opposed to the dream in general.
Right.
Right.
So I think that, you know, if you are truly dating for the purposes of marriage, then, and if you've dated for a significant amount of time, then, you know, then wedding bells, and then you should, you know, dream, because it looks like maybe it's going in that direction. So you've got that dream. So I think that when the relationship breaks down and breaks up, you also have to look at the dream, you know, with that person and heal from that and go, and let hope rise again.
Yes.
And definitely, I know in God, there is a strengthening that, and, you know, there's a place in our hearts that no other human can fill. God himself can minister to our hearts and bring healing to our hearts so that we are whole and we can go into the next relationship, you know, really in a healthy way. But for me, it was the death of a dream with that person, and then let hope rise, that it is out there with someone else.
The dream's not dead.
The dream is not dead, it's alive.
I think that's so important. And not looking back, looking forward, which I think you've modeled so well. And making those intentional decisions. I'm not going to look even at, you know, like, as you say, Facebook pages, Instagram feeds, those different things, because that was my past and my future lies beyond my relationship with this person.
Yeah, and I think, you know, and friends
That's a smart decision.
are, you know, really helpful and wonderful, but sometimes even the friendships go, oh my gosh, did you hear? And a lot of times I would actually say, I don't need to know.
I don't want to know.
And I absolutely wish them well.
Dating.
I wish them well, you know, and I think, and that is way harder to do, I will be honest, than said, you know, because when you do take a moment to look back at the relationship, and after you've separated, it's like, you either remember all the awesome things and then and it's like times 10, like it's on a times 10. So we have to be really careful in those situations to not talk about the bad things that maybe didn't work out.
Yeah.
And when people would come up and you're talking or want to know, I would only talk about it with, you know, significant friendships, because I think it's really important to do that. But then when other people would come up to me, I would try as best as possible to just speak really well and move forward and look
not
to
be
the
the
future.
bitter ex.
I think it's really healthy too to go on another date with someone else. Like, date more in that season, because I think that can help you kind of get your mind off of what just happened.
And also feel attractive and desirable. I think we can underestimate the importance of that. You know, what it does for your self-esteem to be, you know, out with someone who's getting you dinner and opening the door for you and telling you you're beautiful. Not that we use a person in order to leverage our self-image, but when those opportunities arise, taking advantage of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, it's the time frame. Right. So I wouldn't do that the day after. Here we go. Then
She's got a red dress on.
Was that a
just the next week, and I'm going to take a picture out with them and post it.
Because that's part of social media manipulation world. Let's not play that whole thing.
That's
I found as well when you go through a breakup that it's a question of identity in yourself, where you're like, wow, what does that girl that he's with now have that I don't have? And I found some girls have become obsessive in a sense of trying to change everything about themselves because of a breakup, when you just have to go, wow, maybe he and I just were not meant to be, like we just didn't mesh well, and that there are other people out there who think I am fabulous. And I think being able to have that security and being around friends who will feed that security
encourage you, and remind you.
Yes. And if there's things you have to change, then yes, there's time to change. But for the most part, someone is going to love you exactly the way you are. Like
I like that, Brianna, and I think that's important to really get out there and reiterate to women out there.
Yeah, I think sometimes with women, you know, we can try to be trying to make ourselves perfect. But what is perfect?
Exactly.
Yeah. There's no such thing.
Like people like different things about each other that you would never even. I was dating a guy, and there were certain things he liked about me. I was like, I would never choose those things, but that's awesome. Like that's so
I would
great.
have picked my hair,
Yeah,
my
I'm
smile,
like,
my
oh,
sparkly
wow.
eyes, my witty humor.
There's a movie called The Runaway Bride. Do you remember that?
Yes,
With Julia
yeah.
Roberts
Right,
and
Richard
what is it?
Gere.
Richard Gere.
Yeah.
And where she had to like go through this self-crisis moment where she was like making all these different types of eggs, like poached and then scrambled and then sunny side up.
Yum.
And someone was like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Well, I've always just liked the type of eggs that the guy I was with liked."
Wow.
She's like, "I never really realized what eggs do I like." And I'm like, it seems silly and funny, but I know so many people who are in that crisis moment
Who have
sometimes
conformed
where
themselves to
by
whoever
their
they were with.
style or what they eat or the things that they like, and they get to a place where they're like, wow, I don't even know who I am anymore. What do I like? And so giving yourself enough time to be able to heal from a breakup so that you can get yourself back, because you do conform to the person that you date if it is long enough.
Yeah.
Right.
You end up starting to like
Become
things.
like each other.
Yeah.
And how long do you think someone should be allowed to be sad? Or be
that's a
emotional,
good
question.
or grieve over the end of a breakup? And again, you know, I feel like we've kind of talked a lot about dating, but what about those decade-long marriage breakups that end in divorce? What advice would you give to someone who has, you know, had that level of trauma in their life and is having to rebuild?
I at least for me, and Stace, I don't know what you think. I know that for me, there's a fine line between mourning and then victimization.
Okay.
And like you mourn to heal, mourn the loss, but when it starts going into victimization where you start feeling sorry
Or you
for
identify
yourself,
with the grief and the trauma, and that's now become your identity. I am a divorcee.
right?
Yeah.
right.
I think that for each person, I think we lean on two sides. I think every human does. Either we're the type of person where when trauma happens, we build walls and we try to keep everything and everyone and even pain out. Or on the other side, we're the bleeding heart and we need, you know, ourselves and everyone around us and the vulnerability that it is to have this extreme openness. And I think that most of us need to find that middle ground, and especially in relationships when there is, you know, whether it's a long relationship or a marriage breakup, again, it depends on, you know, the connectivity, the emotional, everything that you've been through with how much, you know, time it takes.
Yeah.
And I would say this, it takes as long as it takes to get you healed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So like you said, Brianna, it's for the purpose of that season of after the breakup is for healing, not just to now be identified as, you know, or be defined by the previous relationship.
Right.
You're an awesome, wonderful human being, and you need to grieve. For me personally, I was determined not to all of a sudden build walls up, because that would typically be more of my bent, and so I made myself grieve. So I was like, I'm gonna let myself feel these feelings. It's sad.
Yeah.
It was a horrible, sad, you know, situation. I wish it upon no one. And I think when you go through some things, you know, you really can relate to other people when they've gone through some stuff as well. I know I had deep appreciation for people that have gone through trauma and breakups when I had, you know, a significant one myself.
Right.
And I feel like for me, though, I was determined not to put up the wall, to allow myself to grieve, but grief has an expiration date.
And
Yes.
sometimes if you don't know maybe how to do that on your own, because that's a pretty mature way of doing it.
Yeah.
Also being able to do a season of counseling for that counselor to
100%.
help you process it correctly. Because some people are not surrounded by incredible friends or incredible people that you can go, man, this is how I feel. And is it right or wrong? But just to have a season maybe of counseling where they can help
you know what, and
process it
good
in a healthy
counseling
way.
does have an end date.
It does.
Yes.
So counseling is not, I'm going to
Yes.
counseling, because I think that's a thing out there. It's like, if I go to a counselor, I'm the person in counseling, I'm just on a couch the rest of my life. Well, then how great was the counselor?
If you're not getting free.
If you're not getting free.
Yes.
The freedom, liberation, so a season of good counsel
Yes.
from either a counselor or, depending on the situation, if it's a little bit less, then, you know, a church leader, a really significant friend that's gone through something as well, that can pull you into what's reality, girl? How are you going to have victory?
So a good
move
counselor
forward?
walks you through. They don't have you linger in.
Exactly.
So if they're like, I have to see you once a week on a Tuesday for the rest of your life, there may be a problem.
And bring from the counseling office to friendships. You can't keep everything in a closed-door counseling session that's private. It's great, but we got to work it out in real life.
Discuss it with people that know you.
Can I also say with a breakup, my only last thought was, be careful who you're talking to about it, because if you're talking to someone who goes from relationship to relationship to relationship, and they're giving you counsel on how to handle it, I would say choose wisely what people you decide to open up to. What relationships do they have that you're like, I would love to have that marriage or that relationship.
Is it healthy? Yes.
So that they can give you wise counsel, because I've even seen teenagers or young adults who will go to teenagers who are bitter about their past relationship, and it just becomes this bitter pity party rather than really choosing, man, maybe I need to open up to that leader, that I see the relationship and I want
Go where
that.
the healthy people are.
Yes.
Yeah, go where the healthy people are.
I had a friend that told me, I think was the best advice to me, and she had said, look, you're going to get a lot of wisdom and counsel. You've built really good relationships in your world, and you're going to get wisdom and counsel. But she said this, make sure to make your own decisions, because you'll live out the consequence of your decision. So when you're approaching even a breakup and you're getting wisdom, remember that you're living out the rest of your life with the choices that you make.
Gosh, that's good.
So take the wisdom, receive the wisdom, but then own the decisions.
In this last minute, what if you're the breakee, not the one who was broken up with, but the one ending the relationship? How should you do it graciously, kindly, in a way where there's as little relational collateral damage as possible? There's always going to be a bit, because a breakup by definition is a rejection. It's a break. And oftentimes there can't be clean breaks unless both are agreed and come to the same conclusion at the same time. But if someone is out there and they're dating someone and they realize, oh my gosh, this person just isn't for me, what is the right way to do it?
Can I say two scenarios? So one, let's just say this is the beginning. So it's not a long, significant relationship, but this actually happened to me. So a guy that I had known, so I was friends with, so I kind of knew the person, and he wound up asking me out on a date. And sometimes you're caught off guard. Like, I didn't think that this person was interested in me, and so it kind of caught me off guard, and I went, okay, you know, and I said yes, because my nature is to, you know, be gracious. But then afterwards, I was thinking, I don't want to go out on a date with this person, because I really have no intention of pursuing it, because I actually did know the person. And I think that graciousness is a really big thing. So I made a decision. I did text him, and I just said, hey, thank you so much for the invitation to coffee, but if you're interested in me other than a friendship, or, you know, some connection at church, then I just need to let you know that I'm not interested in you in that way. But thank you so much for asking me out. It's so flattering. I so appreciate it. And the truth is this.
Good job.
Literally the next Sunday at church, we saw each other, we gave each other a hug, we're friends to this day.
Oh, so great.
And so I think in those smaller situations, I think that really being, you know...
You handled that well.
That's good.
And I think in situations where maybe there's been a little bit more time and more emotional investment, the Bible says it best, treat one another how you would like to be treated. So if someone was having that conversation with you, how would you want them to deliver the news? And I think once you've delivered it, give them space, let them heal without seeing your face all over the place, and just be mindful of stepping out with that new guy or girl
and
quickly.
do those ones in person.
That's
not a text.
No text,
so mine was a first date.
No email, not even FaceTime.
Face to face, as best as humanly possible, both together, and let that person know and give the reasons why, so that there can be closure. This whole like, you're just not the one. You're
too good for me.
It's not you, it's me.
Whatever.
Actually, give the real reason, but do it graciously. So truth in love. So you know, we don't need to be mean about those things, but actually describe why personally this is not for me, and this is what I want to let you know.
So they're not searching for answers down the road. Do you know what happened?
What did I do wrong?
Yes.
Oh, good.
We love you. Thank you for tuning in. All the best in those relationships. Hey, if you're married, go home and have the sexpectation conversation. If you're going to break up, do it well. If you have broken up, we pray all grace and strength to you in Jesus' name. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Cherish TV. Tune in next week, because we're going to be talking about why am I still single? Not me, but others. And how can I be truthful without being offensive? America needs to learn the answer to this question. We love you. Have an amazing week. We'll see you next week on Cherish TV.